All right, guys. So we're really into this fraction stuff, and everybody's doing great. Hopefully, these things that I'm teaching you, not just on these videos, because we're doing a lot in class, are going to really help you guys out moving forward. This next thing that we're going to talk about is something that you actually have already probably been using for a few years now, probably even before you really knew what fractions were. I think my 2-year-old may even know how to do this at times. And that's what we call benchmark fraction. Benchmark fractions are fractions that we can, they are simple fractions that are easy to visualize and easy for us to use to describe stuff. It's really it's a way of estimating when we're looking at different objects that are broken up into fractions. And the main ones that we really use are the following. We talk about halves, and that's really the one that you probably have been using for a while, that even my 2-year-old might already know how to use that. You know, an example would be if you're eating a sandwich at home and you ate half of it, and your mom or dad might ask, you know, what's left, and you just know that you had one half and you ate it, and then the other half is left, and you can look at the sandwich and see that. It's just a simple fraction that's easy for you to visualize and also easy for you to explain to somebody what part you have or have left. And then the other fractions that are benchmark fractions are thirds, in particular 1/3 and 2/3. And then we also have fourths, and really there it's 1/4 and 3/4. And some of the other ones, eighths are pretty popular, but really in our grade, for third grade, we're going to focus on these three, looking at halves, thirds, and fourths. Okay? And so here's some examples of what exactly I'm talking about when I say benchmark fractions. Here we have a pan of brownies. It's not cut up into fractions at all. In fact, if this was a real pan sitting in front of us and I wanted to divide it, I would have to be the one cutting it into fractions. So using benchmark fractions helps us visualize where we should make the cut. So if I wanted to cut this pan of brownies in half, I don't need to measure it because I'm not going to be exact. I'm going to use a benchmark fraction, or it's a way of estimating where that should be cut in half. And you can see that if I came here and I cut it right about here, I know it's not a straight line, but that would be cutting it in half. It was easy for me to visualize, and I could also probably explain that to you. If I said I had a pan of brownies and I cut it in half, you could probably visualize in your head what that would look like, just like this picture here, without really needing a measuring tool or anything. Another example is if you look at this bottle over here. If you were to look at this bottle, you would use a benchmark fraction and you would say, oh, well, that bottle is about half full. The blue representing the liquid. Okay, so if it was water or whatever and it came up to right here, then the benchmark fraction, you're not taking an exact measurement. You don't know if it's exactly half full or not, but it's an estimation. It's pretty close to the fraction of being half full. So that's another way we use benchmarks. If this was my bottle and somebody wanted to know how full it was, and I described it to them as half full, that would be easy for them to visualize. Think about after recess when we get water breaks and I tell you guys to only fill your water bottles half full. Well, that's exactly what we're doing there. You're not going to sit there and take a ruler with you, measure a bottle, and get it exactly half full. You're going to use an estimation or a benchmark fraction to visualize it at about half full, and it would look similar to this bottle. So that's looking at it at half full. Now let's take those same pictures, okay? Let's discuss it a little bit different. Okay? Let's say I wanted to use another benchmark fraction and say I wanted 1/4 of the brownies. Like I said, Mr. G's on a diet, so maybe maybe I can only eat 1/4 of the brownies. So again, I could do one thing. I could cut it up into 4 equal pieces, or I could just sort of visualize in my head where 1/4 would be, and that would be sort of like, not exactly perfect, but it would be something similar to that piece right there. And you can see that this one piece, it probably would be easily be cut into 4 pieces. It'd probably be another piece over here, one down in this corner, and one down in this corner. And if I shaded it in and cut that piece out, and I told you what this picture looked like just by using the description of I ate 1/4 of that brownie, that fraction is one that's really, again, easy to visualize, so you could probably have an idea in your head of what that looks like. Now let's take a look at this bottle over here again. Again, we could visualize this and we could say, all right, well, how full is that bottle? Well, it's definitely not half full like the other one. Remember, the other one was somewhere up in here, half full. Okay? But if we looked at this, what we want to ask ourselves is, what's in here is what fractional part would that be compared to a full bottle? And again, this would be 1/4 full. Okay? And basically what we're doing is, if I had 4 pieces like this, or the bottle, okay, you can see how I have these 4 pieces, they're all the same. You can see how that basically takes me up to the top of the bottle. Not all the way up to the top here. Remember, most bottles are only filled up to here. So you can see there how it took about 4 of those same size measurements to fill up that bottle. So what if I took this one away? Again, it's more than half full. Half full is down in here. Okay? And again, you just want to visualize, well, how much is left? There's about, like I said, 1/4 left. Okay? So that would mean I could visualize that and say, okay, it's about 3/4 full. And so now let's take a look at the last benchmark fraction we take a look at, and that's thirds. And again, if I had that same pan of brownies, let's say Mr. G was extra good and he could eat a little bit more on his diet, and I wanted 1/3 of this pan of brownies. Again, I could cut it up into thirds using benchmark fractions. But basically, when I look at it and I want to think, oh, what is 1/3? I just kind of visualize in my head and I make my best estimation of where 1/3 should be. And it's probably going to be kind of like in here. And again, it's not going to be perfect because I could visualize those as being roughly 3 equal pieces if I cut that into thirds. You see that? And that would be cut into 3 equal pieces. And this piece over here would be my 1/3 piece that we're talking about. Or if I knew that I wanted 2/3 of a piece, then I could, like I said, easily visualize those 2/3 fraction and draw that other line here. And you can see it's not perfect, this middle piece is a little big, but it's pretty close to being 3 equal pieces cut in thirds. I'm not taking a ruler out to measure exactly how big each piece must be or anything like that. I'm using benchmark fractions, fractions that I can visualize in my head, and then just use that visualization to cut the brownie in half, or in thirds in this case. And again, look at this bottle. Again, we're going to look at this bottle, and we would look at it and we would see we would see how much is left. And when we look at what's left, we want to say, okay, well, how many times would we have to take what's left and stack it on top of each other to get it full? Looking at this, it would probably take 3 of those pieces to get a full cup or a full glass of this bottle. So I would say it's 1/3 full. And people could probably easily visualize that. And if you look here, again, it takes about 3 of these to fill up near the top. So that was roughly 1/3 full. Now, let's say I take that piece away for a minute. If I had this much left, it's still more than half. It's not quite as much as 3/4. And so I just have to do my best estimation thinking, yep, that's about 2/3 full there. When we work more with these benchmark fractions class, this will become a little bit more clear. The two that are kind of tough to distinguish between are 1/4 and 1/3, especially when we're talking about like this glass bottle. You can see here I took that same measurement from the other page, and this orange rectangle was 1/4, and that blue rectangle is 1/3. Now, putting them side by side, you can see one is clearly bigger than the other. 1/3 is bigger than 1/4. But when you're looking just at the bottles, it might not be quite so easy. You could easily look at this one bottle and think that it's about 1/4 full. Even though if you tried stacking 4 of these on top of each other, your bottle would be overflowing. Like so. So those are hard to really distinguish between the two, and sometimes you have to just pay a little extra careful with what it looks like and do the best estimation, best job you can. So let's take a look at this exercise right here. Here is a rectangle, and what we're going to do is we're even going to try this in class and see what you guys think. But it's telling us to break it into 3 equal parts, and we're going to do it just by using our heads. We're going to visualize it, think about what that benchmark fraction would look like, where exactly would I break these lines into equal parts. We're going to do the best we can, and then I'm going to move it, and I'm going to show you guys how close we can actually get just by visualizing it in our heads. So if I was going to break this into thirds, I would say the first line would probably fall somewhere right here, and that second line would be somewhere right here. Now when we remove this square, you're going to see that my lines are not going to be perfect, because using benchmark lines you won't get exact there, but underneath we have an exact measurement, but you can see that we're going to be pretty close. Take a look. We weren't too far off at all, and that was just by using our heads and visualizing what 1/3 of this rectangle will look like, and then what 2/3 will look like. So benchmark fractions are simple fractions: 1/2, 1/4, 3/4, 1/3, 2/3. Simple fractions that are easy for us to visualize and easy for us to use to describe stuff to other people. Okay? They're an estimation to help us describe parts of something